this is Beth McKenna. You can find me on BethMcKennaXXX.com. You can find me on Twitter. Yes, it's still Twitter. Damn it. At Beth McKenna53. And you are watching John the Ninja, and he's awesome.
Break character. Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja back in studio. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't know which one, but it's good to be back. It's good to be doing what we do best, and that's talking to individuals with wonderful lives. So to start this off, ladies and gentlemen, stand up, Mississippi. Women's basketball, stand up. Do not confuse the mademoiselle I have here with the jazz star. She's a Southern belle, and she has done quite well for herself. Even though you may or may not disagree, you cannot put down the fact that she is an intellectual that really is living her life on her terms, which we all aspire to. She was great at English, wanted to do PE or be a music teacher when she grew up, but her mom, much like most of our mothers, challenged us to do a little better, doctor or lawyer. And of course, she chose the better route. She went the lawyer route. For 30 plus years, she worked in workers' compensation and defense with law firms, helping people across the United States. However, at 50, she was feeling the urges. We all get certain urges, sexual urges, and she was feeling like she was being starved and she wanted to explore her sexuality a little bit more. At 52, she dove headfirst into the world of, well, we say corn now, wink, wink, but in doing so, she actually was able to amass a brilliant career, not only helping people in the legal field with porn stars, and all of the above, but also being able to express herself in ways that she never was able to really tap into during her career. She's had wonderful working partners as well as working with some of the top companies in the porn industry. We're including Hard Art, Score, MILF, Kink, Nookies, and she's even worked with names such as Dee Williams, J. Cruz, Sally D'Angelo, Braylon Bailey, Tyler Cruz, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, the lady I have here is Miss Beth McKenna, and she has graciously agreed to join us to talk about her life. So without further ado, Mademoiselle, how are you doing today?
I am super. I'm so excited to be here.
How are you doing today? What is happening? Are you in the office at home?
I am in the office at home. I have my worker bees back here. They have their own cubicles, and I joke that the one on the in the corner, that's the law library, and then this is the file room, so what are you gonna do?
Are these partners in the firm or they're just there to
Oh,
hang out
they're
with kids?
mere associates, that's right.
I did want to hit one question that's a little obscure because in referencing your interviews, you mentioned wrestling and you mentioned Dave Batista. I had to know if we're a big wrestling fan right here.
I grew up watching wrestling. The days of like Junkyard Dog and oh man, gosh. There's one he's not he's actually in Mississippi. I can't remember. I can't come up with his name. But yeah, what I grew up watching it and was very disappointed to discover it's not real. But I mean, it now I see doing what I do now, I see how much athleticism it takes to do what they do, even if it is somewhat prearranged. So yeah.
I
But yeah, I love Dave Bautista. He's just he's awesome.
gotta tell you the truth, it's all real. Even if we're planning what's gonna happen, my back still hurts. I ain't gonna lie to you. And
Yeah, it may look meaner or whatever, but you still have to be able to physically lift somebody or slam them or whatever. So
yeah,
it's real to an extent, that's for sure.
well, it gets real too when you didn't know that the turnbuckle wasn't actually padded.
Yep, exactly.
So, Mademoiselle, I know you were a big sports person growing up. You had all these sports, you loved being active, but I never really got to ascertain, other than basketball, what sports were you doing when you were growing up and in college?
I played softball, mostly on church teams, Mississippi and the Baptist Southern Bible Belt. I played softball, I played volleyball in school, and then basketball as well. It's funny, I'm probably faster now than I was then, which says something. So I did not run track or any of that, but I played volleyball and basketball and softball were my main things.
How are you keeping active now? Because one thing I really love martial arts, but because of sports, I walked away from it.
Mhm.
And now that I'm unable to participate in those team sports, the
Right.
sport I hate the most, which I was good at cross country, keeps on coming up to work out. And now that it's back to an individual workout style, I'm finding martial arts is getting me back into that peak shape. What sports other than working out have you been doing now that you're trying to maintain the physical fitness that you need
Right.
for your films?
I'm a runner. I've done 19 full marathons and I'm not sure how many half marathons. I lost count on that. And I used to coach people to run marathons, so that was really fun to see people reach their dreams and it's like a you they don't believe in themselves until they get there like, oh crap, I did this. I'm like, yes, you can do whatever you put your mind to. So I run, I bike, I've done some triathlons. I'm not a strong swimmer, but I love to bike and I love to run. So those are my main things.
How did you fall into running? Because my story is a very romantic, ridiculous one. I was a
Mm,
snot-nosed kid, and I had a Coach M to protect the innocent, which he is. He reached out to me just to, hey, be a walk-on, and it ended up opening up so many doors for me to be where I'm at now, to accomplish the things. And I just think of like, man, I was the worst six man in history of that team. I would show up in trainers to races. I was always in basketball shorts. Like I would thoroughly complain, and I give him much respect because as much as I complained, he never chastised me. He always gave me a
right.
chance. And then in turn, when that gun went off, I always gave it my all. When I practice, I always
There,
gave it my all. But
absolutely.
once you fall into that, you can't get out of that sport. You're in it for
Mhm.
how did you fall into running, especially the what is it, Philly sorry, Cameron. The Philly Broad Street run is probably my biggest accomplishment to date
Ah, cool. Yeah.
for running, and that was out of
Yeah.
shape. So, what would you say got you into it, and what was your biggest accomplishment as a runner?
Gotcha. I actually started running in law school for stress relief. I started running 3 or 4 miles a day every day, and then kind of stopped. I did spin. I'm a certified spin instructor. I worked out at the gym when I started working, practicing law. I started working in um, working out, spin class, stuff like that. And then decided to start running, like build up to start running marathons. So it kind of grew into something crazy. And I guess my there are two different accomplishments, I would say. Disney has a Goofy challenge. Now they have a Dopey challenge, but the Goofy challenge was you run a half marathon on Saturday and a full marathon on Sunday. And I did that several years ago. And then the other thing, there's an organization called Marathon Maniacs, and I'm in that. You have to run like a certain number of marathons in a certain period of time, like 3 in 90 days or 2 in 2 weeks or something. Well, I ran a marathon one weekend and then the next weekend to qualify to be in Marathon Maniacs. The ones I did the New Orleans Marathon where it's just pancake flat. The only hills are just train trestles, it's like woo. But and then the next weekend I ran the marathon in Austin, Texas, which is hilly as hell. So that was probably my honestly biggest accomplishment.
Do you prefer hills or do you prefer flats? Because every time it was a fast course, it was just hell for me. And then when it was like a little bit of a challenge or we're running through the woods, I was like, oh, I can do this. This is way easier than just running straight for
Yep.
however
Yeah,
long.
I prefer heels. Now they don't have to be super steep, but yeah, but because you're using different muscles up and down, so when you can vary it, you're giving if you're going downhill, you're giving uphill muscles time to rest and recover. So, but if you're running flat, you're using the same muscles the entire time, and it's easier to fatigue.
So, Mademoiselle, I do have to ask because in prior interviews, you have been forthcoming. You grew up in the Bible Belt. You had to deal with the religious aspects. You had to
Oh
deal
yeah.
with the guys being foolish and funny, and you were just so driven. You were very laser focused on what you wanted to do, even hearing the stories of what you've accomplished, what you achieved, what you're certified to do. You have to have a certain drive to do that. I was wondering, with the back and forth and how much of an influence your mom was on actually sending you to law school. How is that relationship? do you think it was more so you seeing her example and you just running with what she was doing? Or was it more so you had your own personality and she was kind of a guiding light? What was the relationship between you and mom? And the personal question as well, was dad in the picture too? Did you have a close relationship with your father?
Actually, my natural father died when I was 13. My parents had divorced when I was 8, and he died when I was 13, but my mom had remarried a wonderful gentleman, so I had a fantastic stepdad experience. I remember attending my mom's graduation. She went back to school to go to college and graduate. And so I was there at her graduation. And that's one of the stronger childhood memories I have, um, watching her succeed, watching her um, finish what she had started and grow and do better. And it encouraged me to, we can, and it's the message. You can do anything you put your mind to. You really can. And I've lived that. She lived that. Her mother lived that. And I try to live that every day too. We have a really good relationship, and it's funny. She encouraged me. It was like, don't be I don't like her message, but this is what she said, and I don't mean to offend nurses, paralegals, but she was like, don't be a nurse, be a doctor. Don't be a paralegal, be a lawyer. And the reason for that for her was that when she and my father divorced, she had nothing. And so her message was not about, it wasn't some hierarchy of jobs. It was the bottom line message was do something where you can take care of your own self financially. You're not responsible. You're not looking to anybody else to pay your way through life. And so it wasn't an insult to paralegals and nurses. It was do something to make sure you can pay your own way, regardless of who you're with or not. So yeah, she pushed and pushed, and I'm a lawyer. Yay.
Well, mira, that's sound advice. I should have took my mother's advice when I graduated. She said, "Okay, baby, now go get a sugar mama." I was like,
That's awesome.
could have told me my law, I'm sorry, not law, because we're speaking of law. You could have told me my biblical studies degree wasn't going to be worth jack in the real world, mama. You could have
That's
laid
so
that in
funny.
a little bit. But I understand that concern of like, hey, don't be in a position where you can be walked on, be in a certain
Right.
place where no
Exactly.
matter what happens, you're in a safe spot.
Okay.
So just from the stories I've heard from friends who've gone to law school, shout out to Gwen, shout out Jason. I need to know what is it about law school? Because now it's totally different from what I've seen from friends who just graduated. We have technology, we have all these things at our disposal, but we still have these stories of people breaking down. I understood women explaining the story to me,
Right.
emotional, the cold calling, people being a little callous, these groups of people just, it's like everyone's out for blood. But the story that really hit me the most was my best friend's brother. He's basically my brother at this point. But he said, man, if it was between law school or jail, I'm going to jail. Like I legitimately went through so much BS going through
Wow.
school. I would never wish that on people.
Yeah.
And all the lawyers that I've interviewed since, just for other avenues and other things. They were like, yeah, man, I don't work in the law no more. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I wanted to know what was your experience like in law school? And did you have that so-called breakdown moment? Might not have been crying, but it was a moment where you kind
Sure.
of just can't do this and then you picked yourself back up.
Yeah. For me, I was that smart kid that I had a photographic memory. Um, and so I adapted well to like studying in law school is completely different from studying in college. A lot of people don't know, in college you'll study a chapter, have a test, study a chapter, have a test. Well, in law school, for the most part, you study an entire subject for an entire semester, and you have one test at the end of the semester, and that is your grade. And so there's a lot of pressure to to do well and these tests are not usually multiple choice. They're written questions. Well, in my day, handwritten. We barely had laptops No, I got my first computer in law school with the DOS, the orange dot on the cursor dot. But there's a lot of pressure because your grade depends on just that one test. And for people who don't test well or who don't write well, it can be very stressful. I enjoyed it because I'm sort of a nerd. Um, and I had graduated early from college, and then so I went straight into law school, graduated early from law school. I didn't really have a breakdown moment. I did have to have an emergency surgery during law school. I had taken summer school one summer, and I had four different classes, and I was trying to like push through. And I took one exam, and then had to like my stomach started hurting, and it was a endometriosis was the issue. So I had to have an emergency surgery, and I missed the other three exams and had to make them up when I got back to school. And the professors were very nice and understanding and all that. So I had a very positive experience in law school. Um, I don't know. I guess it depends on the school. It depends on the person. It depends on the professors. There were a lot of professors that would push you to. Con law was one big example that you just memorize it. I would make up index cards, flashcards to try to remember the cases, the case names, and what it was about and stuff. But yeah, it was hard, but I enjoyed it. I'm one of those, I can say I had a positive experience in law school.
Not to be rude, because I know you're a lady, but now the BDSM stuff is starting to make a little bit more sense.
So
Compared to those stories in
awesome.
this one, I'm like, you know what?
That's so funny.
Not the suffering, but the pain
That's
aspect.
right.
What a wonderful gift you've been given to be able to do that and to have an experience where
Absolutely.
most people are just literally for 4 3 years just out of their
Yeah.
wits end even after they graduate. When I think of law and the big firms, the stereotype, I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people say that it has changed, but when you get up to the higher brass, it's still the 80s vibe of you got
Mm-hmm.
sleazeballs, you got dudes that are out of pocket. And
Yep.
I had one talk with a lawyer that said, like, first day showed up, he said, come to the office, and he's like, why don't you have a pen and paper? And then threw something at her. It was
Oh,
really cool because he wanted her to write things down and he didn't relay that. I'm like, you're a better person than me. I'm like, you didn't say it, bro. Like, it would have been
wow.
an issue
Right.
in the office. I wanted to know when you got to your first job, how was that? Because you ended up mentioning a boss that you said was chivalrous.
Gotcha. Um, that firm, it was one of the larger firms in Jackson, Mississippi. And just like, and let's see, I graduated from law school. I started practicing law in 1992. Um, and I started at this firm. My stepdad was actually a client of the firm. So that was a little bit helpful, but they made it clear that we don't have women partners. We just don't. And at that point in time, nobody had really women partners. Again, Mississippi, it's in the South. We're slower catching up with stuff like that. There were no people of color as lawyers in that office. Um, they did hire one guy, one black lawyer, male lawyer, and he stayed there a while. But for even for people of color, the atmosphere was not comfortable. It was not. But yeah, I had some good bosses and some bad bosses, and learned a lot and how to get along with people and stuff like that. But yeah, it was at that point in time, it still really was like it's a man's world, and good luck breaking that ceiling.
So how was this particular boss chivalrous? Because for me, when I think of chivalry, I think of courting, I think of a gentleman. And not that it's the same circumstance, but for dating, that has been such a non-positive, doing it the right way.
Right.
And it's not just the ladies of the new generation and different thinking. It's been like, hey, I've earnestly gone out of my way, open the door, this and that. And I just remember seeing like, if the girl appreciates it, she's way too conservative to how I live my life as far as believing in God and helping people. And what you should and shouldn't worry about. So when they like it, they're a little too conservative. But when they don't like it, it's like, well, how am I supposed to, you know, treat you in that position? I understand you're on your own, you make your own money, that's great, but
Right.
I've run into so many issues with that in dating, and I've also run into that in the pharmacy where I've tried to be respectful and I ended up offending somebody. So what about his chivalry was something that to this day you're still like, you know what? That was a good man.
He was my primary boss in my first firm, and we would go to lunch frequently. And in downtown Jackson at the time, there were several restaurants within walking distance. And so we would walk up the street to go eat lunch. And my main memory is that he always walked to the outside, on the street side of the sidewalk. And he would, if we came out of the building the other way, he would go around and make sure he was on the side next to, he was closest to the street and not me. And I remember asking him, why do you, because I had never seen that before. I have a dad and an uncle, and they're both very polite and gentlemanly, but I've never walked up a sidewalk, I guess, with either of them. But he said, "Oh, this is just what men are taught to do. In the olden days, if a carriage splashed in a mud puddle, it would protect the lady's dress or whatever." But he was always really thoughtful, pull the chairs out, take your coat, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing was he walked on the street side when we walked to lunch and back. Very thoughtful,
I don't think
sweet
ladies
man.
or men nowadays understand that women remember that. Like how kids remember things, I think women remember that. One thing I loved that you mentioned is you loved messing with lawyers that were hot shots that kind of thought, like, oh, I know what's happening. I'm gonna tell you what it's going. And one thing, my friend, he's currently practicing in Florida, and he told me that it's not like that in Florida. As crazy as we may judge or whatever, they hold a higher standard of you're here to get the job done. You're going to be cordial even if you hate each other. And people have like little remarks have gotten people in hot water. I wanted to know, when was there a moment where you really got to maybe not bask in it, but somebody was being a smart aleck and you were able kind of how my cross country coach would say, you got to break them,
Yep.
like, seriously,
Yeah.
but you kind of, it wasn't because you wanted to go out of your way. It's just they kept on pushing and pushing, and they was like, hey,
Mhm.
I got to put my foot down and let you know who I am, what my name represents.
Right. The fun thing for me as a female lawyer at any age, and it was true when I first started practicing, and so just so you'll know, there was a period of 9 years where I was out on my own doing some other consulting type stuff, and then went back to a law firm, and it was still like that then. Go ahead.
Would that include the tax work? Because I know you also got certified to do special taxes.
That was actually, that's what led to the tax work, the tax degree. I was a judge for Medicare during those 9 years or so. And so I worked from home and then the Medicare changed the rules on who was doing these hearings. So I lost that job and had to go back to a firm. And it was especially true when I came back after 9 years in the same practice area. Um, you'll find that lawyers, when we specialize, like I know everybody that does workers' comp in Mississippi, but I don't know everybody that does bankruptcy because I don't do bankruptcy, family law, stuff like that. So there's kind of a tight community of lawyers in each practice area. And most of the time, we all get along. But there are sometimes when, like, a young male lawyer will see a female name on the other side and start to think, she's a wuss. I can just take her. And I would just let him. And this was not like an adversarial argument sort of a thing. This is more back and forth on emails or stuff like that. But I just let you tie your own knot for your own rope to hang yourself. And that was what was so much fun for me, is just to let them just walk right into, just like, the law is the law. Workers' comp is very well established in most states, certainly in Mississippi. And it, there's only so much you can do, and so to have young male lawyers that were trying to like pull one over on me and like, good luck. because I've been doing this since you were a baby. But so those were the kind of things that I would enjoy a lot. I did file a motion. We don't have a sanctions policy or a rule in workers' comp in Mississippi, but I did actually file a motion for sanctions against another lawyer right after I started back practicing in a firm. Um, and later we became great friends and we got all sorts of cases settled. He was like, you filed a motion for sanctions. You know, it's, he would every time I saw him for the next 3 or 4 years, he was like, I still can't believe you did that. I'm like, but you were being an asshole. Yes, I was, you know. So it's one of those things where when you get to know people, you're cool. But people, I mean, and it's normal to try to, any advantage you can get, you take, right? Um, so I would just let these young lawyers just walk right into a trap and admit whatever they didn't need to admit or whatever, so those are fun days.
I'm starting to get the Mississippi really behind. I don't know if they've been missing UFC or they haven't seen. Ladies are tend to be the most vicious when it comes to getting things done. You got to always watch it, especially on the basketball court. I never played the
Yep.
game. Y'all would be shooting threes and crossing legs. I'd be like, no, 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 hold on. Mass stance. Excuse me. Hold up. Nope. Stand back. Let me get in position. Thank you. I know you've mentioned that at a certain point that it stopped being fun, you weren't enjoying it. And that does tend to happen when you're doing something for so long and there's unfinished business. But
Right.
I wanted to know, did you have a moment where kind of like how Bad Bunny won the Grammy the other day and he had to take a second, just like, okay, I did it. Did you have a moment where with the law degree, maybe mom came up and said, hey, I'm so proud of you, thank you, and that was maybe vindication or was getting the bar card of vindication? Was there a moment in your career as far as law goes where you got that win and you had that moment of like, this is why it was worth it?
Um, Honestly, it was probably, yeah, but it also led to burnout. So at one point in time, a different firm, we represented automobile companies in products liability lawsuits. And in those products liability lawsuits, you would see uh, airbags that had decapitated children or rollover crashes where children had been, or adults, but children are that sticks with you more, um, would be ejected from the vehicle because they weren't belted in. And so those were the times when it was hard to do my job because I know that mom is suffering, but I also know that this car did not cause it, and but I understood it's one of those like sociology sort of a you learn about people a lot, it, and I put myself in mom's spot that if I'm driving and my kid's in the front passenger seat, unbelted or too small and not in a child seat, um, and we slam on brakes, hit something, and the airbags deploy, that kid's going to go forward. I did that, not the car. I did that. And so, and I get that I couldn't live with myself with the knowledge that I had caused my own child's death. And so it became one of those, I recognized that need in the parents to shift blame. And, and that was, I felt like I was really in the right place to be sympathetic, but still understand that, the car didn't behave any differently than it was supposed to. You didn't follow the law. And so it's those kind of things that it was, you're a real lawyer when you deal in stuff like that and dead children. And it's just not okay. Children shouldn't be dead for any reason. And so those are the tough days. And that's kind of led to burnout. It's like, I don't want to deal with stuff like this.
A friend of mine who I had Bible class with, he always mentions it. He's in school too. I know a lot of lawyers. I'm gonna need a lot of representation when I'm
There
present.
you go.
But we had a teacher say, because he hates it when Christians say, oh, I'm gonna pray for you or God's got a plan when somebody dies. He's like, no, no, Bible's very specific. There's a time to grieve, there's a time to laugh. Shut up. Don't say anything, just be
Right.
there. And
I
he's
love
trying to
that.
do big corporate law. He's doing really good, but he was sitting there, he's like, I ran into a case similar to what you mentioned. He said it was like a mock case of some, and he said, the judge was like, yeah, don't you ever, like he stopped it. Somebody said something. He's like, don't you ever tell a parent that it was their fault, even if it was. I do have to get to this one because I feel like everyone has a sexual awakening. I'm not going to go into details, but please feel free to. I'm just trying to be
Okay.
respectful to you as a lady. You can mention or say,
Sure.
please. But
Okay.
you did have a story, and it goes back to the BDSM story. When you were younger, you were experimenting with yourself. You're under the dining room table, and
Mhm.
you were simulating things that were in line with BDSM at a young age. And you didn't know what it was, but for a while that always stuck with you. And then when you hit 50 years old, that's where you were kind of like, you know what, there's something more. Could you walk us through that feeling?
Well, to explain the earlier when I was a kid, I remember the dining room table that you referenced. So your viewers will know the full story. Kids masturbate, and good parents will teach kids that that's not wrong. It's not a sin to touch yourself, to please yourself. But I remember I was 5 or 6 years old, that young, and I was under the dining room table and I was pretending to be tied up and I had a pillow over my face, so I was pretending what I now know is breath play. Um, and I did that a lot. And so then move on with life, and we all masturbate and all that. So then I go through law school, work as a lawyer, all the kind of stuff, and I hit 50, and I was married to my first wife at the time, whom I dearly love and who is still my best friend, who lives around the corner from me. Um, and I hit 50, and we weren't having sex. We just weren't. And I was like, I don't want to live the next 50 years without sex. And so that's when I even started watching porn. I didn't really watch porn before that. And so because I was interested in lesbian porn, and so naive because I've not looked at porn in forever. So I'm like, lesbian porn on Google, and it just the whole world opens up. So that's when I started watching and exploring, and that led to thinking about, well, I could do this. That might be fun. That might be, it's a physical challenge. We talked about the athleticism stuff earlier. It's a physical challenge, it's a mental challenge in ways, and it's just fun and it's safe because we test, and all that. Um, so that's kind of it. When I first booked my first trip to Los Angeles to explore the adult industry to see if I could do it and liked it, I went ahead and set up a session. That's what they call it, a session with a dom that had been recommended out there, female dom in Los Angeles, and loved it. And I met with her, explained to her that and the people who say I have no limits, don't ever don't trust that person and don't ever say that. Um, but what I told her was I don't know what my limits are, and
And
I want to explore that.
just to clarify, when you say I have no limits, is that the dominatrix or is that the person coming and submitting?
That's the sub. That's the sub saying, I have no limits. Like, you can do whatever you want to me. Everybody has limits. Everybody should have limits. It needs to be safe. You don't need to die in a BDSM dungeon. So it's that sort of you you have to have limits. So it's not cool to say I have no limits. It's okay to say I don't know what they are and I'd like to explore and discover what my limits are, and she helped me discover where my line is. So but yeah, that it's funny looking back and remembering the and I guess I remember about the thing under the dining room table because my mom caught me. That's why it sticks in my head. I'm sure there were hundreds of other instances where I was masturbating, but that one she caught me. She's like, "What are you doing? Like, how do you explain that? With a pillow over your face and just
I'm more upset at mom. I was like, why did you have to ask that? You could have just,
right.
hey,
Just walk away, mom."
you were also told that you, in the law firm, same gentleman, he said that you needed a wife. And
Yeah.
in conversations with my friends, I've been told because times are a little different, people a little bit more looser with the commitment.
Mhm.
They said, "Hey, John, you want a woman that submits her femininity to you. It's not so much her being a walkover, but it's her, you guys having a relationship. You guys understand your roles and what roles you want. And
Mhm.
there's a thing that you should step up and do for her. She'll allow you to do it. She won't fight you over it. And then vice versa. Whether or not she wants to be protected or whether supported. He made that very clear. And what I'm seeing in your sexuality is that you're still open to giving that femininity to ladies, but then
Mhm.
when it comes to the dominant aspect, you take it over men. I wanted to
Mhm.
know if you had to struggle with that dynamic.
Yeah, with I've always said that I will sub to women but not to men. I think it comes from earlier in life. I was like, there have been a couple of lawyers that have like smacked me on the ass as I walk by in the office and stuff. And t- t- men can be assholes. Not all men, but men can be. Women can be assholes too. But so I kind of developed, and I don't know why. And I was also, I will say, mildly molested. It didn't go very far. When I was a teenager, um, I got away because I knew what was happening was wrong and all that. But so nothing terrible happened, but certainly a memory. And so it taught me kind of not to trust men, maybe, and especially in a sexual situation where I need to have as much power, if not more, than you in order to protect myself physically. Um, because you go on dates with somebody you don't know what might happen. You hear stories, you read things, and it's the chances are slim, but they do happen. Um, and so I tend to want to be equal or dominant with men. And it's cool that in the adult industry, I can do that. I can set up scene ideas where we're on equal footing. I don't enjoy the age play stuff. Everybody else seems to, but I don't enjoy the age play stuff. I don't enjoy the power dynamic stuff, and that to me stems from being a lawyer and being in situations where either I was the subordinate being harassed or was in a superior position later on to other, like when I knew I was married to a woman at the last firm I was with, and that firm, as they do, have a habit of hiring really pretty paralegals. And so I wanted to make sure I was never in a situation where I was alone in a room with the door closed with another woman in the office. I didn't think anything would happen, but allegations can really, really mess you up. So I was very careful about that because I was aware of how it was when I was a subordinate to men, and I didn't want anybody to even be able to allege that I did anything wrong. But I'm more comfortable with women, and I don't want men to take it too far, the the dominance or whatever.
Full into the career.
Okay.
We're doing scenes, and you said something that was a little weird to me. You never saw yourself in a light that was sexy. And even if I lied to myself, even if I was BS, and even if I was feeling it, there have been key moments. I remember randomly seeing a picture, looking in the mirror, just recently. The other day, I saw the look on my face. I was like, oh, okay, there's a look of a killer. All right. I don't know where this came from, but I'm digging it. Who are you? There's always something about the self-love I've had, even if it was
Mhm.
just kind of ignorance. And I
Right.
know a lot of people, people's like, oh, I'm a 10. It's like, you might be a 5, bro. There's always this level of love for yourself, and you kind of expressed that you didn't have it. Was there
Mm-mm.
a particular shoot where you were able to appreciate you or somebody really came up, maybe even a fan said, "Hey, I appreciate your body, your look, your brain," just something of the sense of making you feel sexy or just making you feel that vindication of like, yes, I am good looking.
Yeah, no, I still don't feel like I'm good looking. My wife says, "Oh, you're so beautiful." I'm like, she's beautiful, and she doesn't believe it either. I grew up kind of an ugly duckling and never felt pretty, um, and I still like I don't look in the mirror often. My hair will do what it's curly, it's naturally curly, so it'll just be how it be. And but I guess the first time I shot with Dee Williams for All Over 30, my friend Kristen Paris was the photographer, videographer, and she had asked me, they were in Vegas at the time, and Dee lives in Vegas, and she had asked me if I had a preference for a female performer to work with that lived there, who would it be if she could get him? And I'm like, well, Dee Williams would be your top choice, and she was available, and so the day that Dee and I first met in person and first shot, I mean, she's been in the industry for forever. She's well established. She knows her stuff. She doesn't think she's pretty. I'm like, oh my God. So when Dee Williams tells you you have a fantastic body, okay, maybe I'll start to believe it a little bit. That sort of it's that when those people and now I've worked with Dee's girlfriend, Siren Demir, and oh my God, talk about sexy. But she walked up to me and she was like, and I'm like, oh, me? So I'm starting to believe I might be mildly attractive, but you know,
I just wonder how much of that was the Bible Belt upbringing, because a lot of people, most of the stuff I deal with is more so how can God love me and then kill all these people and then Jesus or with this or that and blaming God. But a lot of people don't focus on like the sexual repression that it does drive a lot of people crazy, regardless if they're Christian. And
right,
seeing like how people had to break themselves out of that. Like, no, it's okay. This is normal. This is human. Sin or not, that's debatable. But
right,
a lot of people, once they broke out of that cage, were able to at least live better quality lives without that guilt. So I always wonder if that was a portion of it. Also, I do want to know what has been the quintessential experience at work for you on a set with a company? One that kind of really set the bar because prior to entering, you did a lot of research on what laws, what could, what couldn't happen. We got some stories that I didn't even know an animal in the film just walking by is an illegal act.
I know,
You did your research, and you also have done work in the law field where you would do assessments of like, hey, this is a safe work environment, this isn't. And you've
right.
also used that in the industry as well. So I just wanted to know who's been the quintessential example for work in your eyes so far?
I would have to say kink.com. I shot for, um, it's under the Kink umbrella for Whipped Ass is the name of the site under the Kink umbrella. And my dear friend Five Star ran that at the time. She ran the Whipped Ass website. And when you go on a kink set, we talk about consent way more now than we did when I first started in the adult industry. But they have a big old checklist. No, yes, no, yes. About limits? They were there on time. They were there with a makeup artist. They had the paperwork ready, the no list ready and stuff, and then we went over it. We like on camera. We had an interview before the scene started about, okay, so we don't like slapping in the face, and we don't like whatever. Um, they really set the tone. And I think over the past few years, other companies have followed that protocol, partly because of allegations, whether they're true or not. And like I said earlier, with the law firm and the women making allegations against me, it doesn't matter if it's true.
Okay.
It hurts reputation, even if it's not true. So the the consent thing is a huge, huge part of porn, and and Kink really kind of led the way on that. So I would say that whipped ass set with Five Star was probably the most all-encompassing professional, not that others aren't, but she went to the nth degree to, we can stop at any time. Do you need, like she did a suspension. So I'm roped up, hanging in the air, and she's like, do you need anything? It's like, my nose itches, and all of that. She made sure everybody was comfortable and everybody was respected. And so, yeah, I would say uh, Five Star and Kink for that one.
As a lawyer, your life is already under the microscope with the bar, everything you do. And then
Yep.
with pornography, you're basically giving up that last bit of intimate privacy. Maybe not social privacy, but intimate privacy to the world to express yourself, to show yourself. Did you have any fears or probably reservations about the final part of entering to porn? How did you deal with that stress? Because when talking with Bull Boss Joss, he said that is something that still causes him anxiety, but now because of therapy, he's able to come up with a routine. It's like somebody calls him out, it's like, hey, listen, this is why I'm doing it. My life has seen such an impact and for the better, and this is why I'm going to continue to do it. Like basically a sheet of what to say. How did you deal with those fears, reservations, or any issues that came up?
That's a big one. I was very, very worried that my family would find out, especially my mom. And as far as I know, she does not know. I have other families that have learned about it, tried to do an intervention, and it was like, I'm not being trafficked. I'm sorry. I chose this. I love this job. But so yeah, at first I did as much research as I could about the websites and where, you really kind of have to be watching porn to find me, and so it's like I know my mom doesn't watch porn, she doesn't know where to find porn, um, but but I also knew that if it ever got out, it would, Jackson's a city, but it's not that big a city, and so people know, and people did find out, and so I freaked out initially. Um, when rumors started spreading and stuff, and um it's funny now, and I remember I have a friend at home. She actually lives in Houston, Texas now, but she was on Twitter, and I don't know how we found each other on Twitter because she didn't know who I was and I didn't know who she was, but I guess we happened to follow the same people and wound up just conversing on Twitter. And she asked a question. She had figured out who I was by this time in real life. And she asked a question, and I'm like, this woman has to know me, And I'm like, who are you? And she was like, look at my profile picture, dummy. And I pulled it up and zoomed in. It's like, oh, so, and that freaked me out to begin with because that was my first like personal friend that found me on Twitter just independently as Beth McKenna. And I mean, she was following other porn people, so she was cool, And so as time has gone by, I don't worry about it so much, but yeah, the mom thing she's the one I really would prefer not know. But yeah, if people ask, and I've had friends, most of my friends know and are fine with it. I have had friends struggle actually with like the Christianity versus this. How do you reconcile that? And like, I don't know, it's a job, and it's a fun job, but it's a job. And I choose to do this, and I don't look at it as cheating on my wife because she knows, she's like, go get some. It's not dishonest, it's safe, it's legal, it's all of those things. So I think I can still spread a message through the adult industry that women are just as important as men. Women have just as right to be as sexual or not as they choose to. You know, women, lube is your friend. All of these, I joke about, I have planks in my platform for the adult industry that like female empowerment, lube, toys, our teammates, you know, stuff like that. So, it's this career choice has enabled me to help way more people much more directly than practicing law for 30 plus years, you
And
know.
bringing up old boss Josh again, he was talking about how, even though he's trying to set up a platform in Canada, how nuanced the industry is. So it's hard for performers to get the help for their taxes, for their health
Mhm.
care, for applying for certain things like trying
Oh
to buy
God,
a
yes.
home. And it seems that you fell into the right place at the right time. The
Mhm.
mastery of 30 years working in law, now, even if you don't know the particular law, I know some law has to be nuanced for you to hop into it.
Right.
Um, but it seems like now you're able to actually use your gifts of helping people with English language, with
Right.
things that could legitimately alter their lives for the better. And you always we're down for the ladies, female power. So
That's
I feel
right.
like this was just a combination of everything just working brilliantly together for all your strengths.
I agree. It's funny that my two specialties in law were workplace safety and tax law. And so when I came into the industry, just that's an immediate impact. And so I wound up I'm on the legal committee for the Free Speech Coalition, which is our industry association, supporting association. And now I'm on the board for PASS, which is our testing um, mechanism for to make sure everybody's safe and tested regularly. So yeah, I've had a lovely opportunity to mix adult and law, and it's really fun. It's really wonderful.
One thing that has been an issue of concern that has popped up in other interviews of mine, and Sherry DeVille has probably been the most vocal on this as far as people in the industry, is the freedom of speech aspect of websites making people verify their age. I have no problem with the verify your age portion, but how they're going about it is a little sketchy to me. It's like, hey, give us your license, give us this. But I also have a very big running concern as everyone else, like, hey, we don't want kids getting a hold of this, and it's kind of like the cupboard in the house that somehow kids find
Yeah.
a way,
Mhm.
not even trying. So I wanted to know, could you at least break down the aspect of, for say I'm in disagreement, no, this is perfect, you should put your license down. Could you break down why that is egregious in protecting freedom of speech and privacy? Because there are certain things back in the day, you don't give out your social security, but now it's
Right.
like, hey, I need your social security for
Oh,
everything. So, what is the dichotomy and balance of protection and protecting the children? Which, if you don't want that, you're ridiculous. Everybody is in
right.
agreement to protect
Absolutely.
the kids from this, but also, hey, you can't be doing this to people because now you're sending them to more dangerous websites, or they're going to try different ways that actually puts them in harm's risk. Could you give us a
Right.
quick explanation?
I'd be happy to. So the age verification laws, the first problem you run into is that each state that has one, they're all slightly different. Some are way more invasive than others. Tennessee has one where you would have to, if you lived in Tennessee and wanted to watch porn, you would have to re-verify every hour that you want to watch. Yeah, it's nuts. And there are several states that do like stupid additional stuff like that. But just on a general level, the problem with age verification is that nothing on the internet is secure. If people can hack the Pentagon, they can hack whatever age verification site any porn site uses. So I went to Austin, Texas several months ago to sit in on the arguments for the Texas age verification case, and their judge put it brilliantly. His name is David Ezra. He's a district judge in Austin, a federal judge, and he um, like, well, what about, you picture a doctor in a small town out in Texas, and he enjoys porn, and it's legal. It's okay for him to enjoy porn. Well, so if it gets out in his community that he likes porn, and again, we're still Bible Belt, then he could lose his practice. He could lose his absolute livelihood, and that's not okay. It's we know that porn is protected speech um, under the First Amendment, and honestly, what they're trying to do is end porn, and it's not going to happen, but it's certainly making it more difficult. The better way to go about it would be device-based restrictions, which are already on every phone, every computer. All parents have to do is hook it up. Um, and yes, those can be, I haven't tried it, but I'm sure those can be altered by kids too. The kids are smarter than we are. But it's an invasion of your privacy because if you put your driver's license, if you go to Pornhub and you or whatever, and you verify with your license, they're depending on what state you're in, they are saving it or they're not saving it, and there rubs both ways with that. If they're saving it, then there's your information available to be hacked. If they're not saving it, the pain in the ass is you're having to re-verify every time you go on that site. Um, and even like it's like the metadata, the I think the Texas law talked about this. They don't save, like you verify and they don't save your actual ID, your information, but and I'm not going to explain this the right way because I don't know the terminology and it's been a while since I've talked about this, but there was a situation where the smart people with the computers can figure out like the metadata that it's not, they don't see your license, but they can trace this metadata back to you and get to you that way. And so there is no way to make age verification completely safe for you to verify to watch porn. There's no way.
Would it be a wiser or more dangerous approach? Because at this point, it sounds like the states are basically given their duty that the government said, hey, if we don't say anything about it, go for it. So
Mhm.
states have a way to rule themselves. Would
Right.
it be wiser or more dangerous? Because another approach I've heard is to have people get licenses. Like if you get a gun license, that still seems very state by state, but would it be wiser to be like, hey, you have a license to view things over 18 on the interweb and not necessarily pornography, but things that would
But
be.
anything, right? They're gambling, there are other things.
And then there could be a monitor at home, or I don't know. I don't like the government monitoring that.
There's a way that devices like your Apple iPhone can or would be able to, with very little work toward this, be able to like, well, I don't have kids, but say I have an iPhone and this is my iPhone and I'm clearly well over 18. But I buy my kid an iPhone and we set it up for my child who's 8, say, and it's the phone can recognize you can there's something that you can do with the phone that the phone knows that its user is below 18. And therefore, the phone itself restricts any, even with VPNs, even with all of that, you cannot get to any site that's an 18 and over restricted. Devices can do that. We're there. We're not far away at all from that. Um, the other option to me would be like a federal law, like just pick one and stick with it instead of 50 different states, you know. Um, but I still don't even agree with that because it's still a First Amendment violation. It's still and it's different from if you ever go into an adult store, like a brick and mortar store. Yes, you have to show your ID to show that you're over 18. And I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. And I think they should check IDs. Um, and I don't have a problem. I don't want children watching porn either. But there's got to be a better way to do it that doesn't restrict the entire rest of the population from watching porn also.
Because you have been very vocal against atrocities in the government, not just saying you're against the government, but one
Right.
story I found a little fun, but interesting irony is your mom was a Trump supporter, but when they started removing books, people that were following Trump, then she was like, ah, that's a no-go. We can't do that.
Mhm.
And I'm in total agreement. I wanted to ask, this is a stretch, but only
Okay.
because your Beth McKenna name, right? You had to copyright it. I wanted to know that B looked very close to the Bally's B when they were still around. I had to ask. I was like, was that intentional? Was that an accident? Because I just remember that B from Bally's working out, and I was like,
That's funny. No, I never thought of that. It's just a font. I don't even know the name of the font. My editor and I probably picked it like, how do you like this one? So yeah, that was no thought at all. Apologies to Bally's if it's close, but
I know that copyright can be an issue. Rest in peace to Miss Dakota Sky. But she
right.
mentioned a while ago that she had a situation where she had the name, somebody copyrighted, she could no longer use it. And that's a really wild situation because from my friend, same dude with was it called the court of some kind when he was in law school. He explained like in order for you to get a name, people have to actually know you by that name. You can't just say, "Oh, I've been using it," and then have no proof. Like either locally or nationally, they have to
Right.
be like, "Hey, yeah, people would recognize this person." So for her to lose it in that fashion, it was definitely like, "Whoa, well, there's another person using this."
Crazy.
I
Yeah.
wanted to know what have you run into as far as trying to protect your brand and your marketing? Because you had a brilliant strategy, like, well, if I work with the best, that's gonna astronomically put me out there to more
Mhm.
people. If I do this, that, and this as far as my dealings, it would allow me to have more of a reach. I just wanted to know what the concerns were for copywriting, protecting your assets, as well as, marketing yourself have aligned.
Right. Um, let's see. I um I pay attention. I just had a guy that agreed to take down. He had posted the people that post full videos on Twitter of porn. It's like no one has license to do that. That's copyrighted. You've pirated it or somebody's bought it and pirated it. So I try to be careful about that. There are a bunch of companies out there, DCMA companies that will search your name and take down or send letters and make people take down stuff that they aren't authorized to post. Because we have so many other like not legitimate porn sites that will just steal and put it up, and they're making money off my scene and I'm not seeing a dime of that, and they don't have permission to do that, but they don't have a problem just taking it. So we try to watch out for that pretty well. I haven't had any real push with my name itself or anything. It the funny thing is people because it sounds like just a normal name that tell me this is not your real name. It's like, of course it's not. I'm not that dumb, you know. But there are people in porn who use their real names, and I'm like, kudos to you. That's a big ball situation. But I really haven't had any issues with the name itself. But yeah, the scenes being stolen and published elsewhere is a big issue.
Back to the enjoyment of the art aspect. When you first started watching porn, lesbian porn, but you really enjoyed the pictures. You really enjoyed the sensuality of it, not just the hardcore aspect, which is more in line with the fantasy. As far as your business, as far as your website and your future productions, the two things that I was wondering is for the parodies, because I know you said you wanted to do a parody. What parody did you want to do? And then, as well as that, like, are you going to lean more into that route of the artistic visuals? Where are you at this point with continuing in the industry?
These are great questions. I don't know. My wife and I come up with parody ideas all the time, and our mistake is that we don't write them down. So I'm not sure I can think of any. I'll be thinking about that one. But yeah, for me, porn is not just about just being railed through the mattress. I want to show real people having real sex that that you can do at home. I mean, nothing I do is crazy. Nothing I do is gonna harm. If you were to do what I do at home, it's not gonna hurt you. You know, it's not gonna like stretch your ass. I don't do all that kind of stuff. But um, I really want it to be more artistic. Autistic. That's a good slip because I'm on the spectrum too. But I like the artistry of it. Bodies are beautiful. Female bodies are beautiful. Male bodies are beautiful. There's a guy that I had to cancel. I was supposed to shoot with him a couple weeks ago at AVN, and I had to cancel because of the ice storm. We flew home early. And there's a picture of this man, and it is just one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen. And it's from at a distance of him from the back, and he's totally nude, so it's not showing anything but his body, butt cheek from a distance. He's beautiful. He's just beautiful, and that's what I want to feature in men and women. Bodies are beautiful, and all bodies are beautiful, and so I would like to move into more the expressive artistic portion of it. But comedy is so much. My wife also shoots. She only does girl girl, and when she and I shoot together, it's just the outtakes, the bloopers they sell as well or better than the actual video because we laugh all the way through it. So, oh, cut that.
I did want to know what's the most interesting thing you found out about yourself, or maybe something working in the industry? And not, I don't want to pinpoint it to what's the most interesting law thing you found out. No, something that
Right.
really opened your eyes working in the industry, whether it was you and self-realization or just a funny fact that you just, oh, I would have never known they do that on a set. That
Right.
is,
It's funny. People don't think about how much for a studio scene. It's funny. There are a lot of cuts and they tell you, like, if you're in the middle of a scene, when somebody yells cut, you just freeze because you want to be able to go back to like where right the position that you were at that when it cut. So there are things that you learn about. And if it's like a sexual position and you've got a leg in the air and somebody yells cut, you're just like, you know, and it's weird. It's not always comfortable, but it's actually pretty funny. And so we laugh about that kind of stuff. Uh, what else? I don't know. The most of the people in porn are really, really genuine, lovely people. That's one of the things I think it shouldn't have been a surprise because most people generally are lovely people. Not all, but most. The bad apples just happen to be louder. But in porn, it's I've been very blessed that I have not run into really big assholes. I've not, and it's partly my age. Nobody's going to look at me and, oh, I think I can take advantage of her. No one's, because I have a resting piss off face. So no one has ever tried to like take advantage of me. But I know it happens to younger women, and that's a shame. Most of the people in the industry are lovely, ethical, above board. A lot of us are married. A lot of them have kids, families. They're taking their kids to school every day. You don't think about, like you mentioned, Shri DeVille. I mean, she was a physical therapist before she went into porn, and a damn good one from what I had read back in the day. She was one of the women that I had researched before I went in. Um, but there are lawyers and nurses and therapists and all sorts of folks that have professional careers outside of the industry, and we've got some smart people in this industry. It's really cool, and some down to earth, lovely, thoughtful, caring people too.
you mentioned the book Nine Numbers for Personalities, I believe. It was a self-help
Enneagram.
book, and I wanted to know because I'm unfamiliar with the writing. Did you get a number out of there? Were you on 1 to 9, 8? How did that book help you? Because you also mentioned how it was a good read and it was something that it kind of helped you move along with things.
Sure. That's the Enneagram. And for those of you watching it at home, it's Enneagram, Enneagram. And it means literally, Ennea is nine and gram is picture. Um, so it's a personality typing system that's ancient. It's before Myers-Briggs and all this kind of stuff. And everybody is one of these nine numbers, and each number, no, they're no number is better than any other. They're just different. And so all of us, um, everyone fits into one of those numbers. And when you learn that sort of thing, you learn, first of all, that, so I'm an eight, which is sort of a boss sort of a thing that no one would be surprised. But it teaches you, like if I'm an eight and you're a two, like my wife, oh, for instance, my wife is a two, which is a caregiver. She's very caring, very thoughtful. Um, so it helps me understand her, where she's coming from, what her motives are. And same, she knows I'm an eight, so she understands what my motives are, to not be betrayed, to not, to be able to trust, stuff like that. Um, to not be led. I don't want to lead. I just don't want to have to follow people I don't trust. That's the bottom line with eights. So it's a fascinating, like a personality people study, because everybody falls somewhere on this diagram. And once you learn that, you can, number one, give yourself grace, because now I understand why I am the way I am, but it also gives you grace with other people. And it helps you understand, well, she's not really just being an asshole. She's a one, and she's a perfectionist, and she just needs things to be a certain way for her to be comfortable. She's not being mean to me. She's a one, you know. So when you understand those things, it helps you get along with people better. It helps you understand yourself better more than anything. It helps in your personal relationships, work relationships, all sorts of stuff. So that's, and that's my autistic special interest of the past several years. I teach it. I don't, you can see behind, I've got several CD sets and stuff. It's a great thing to delve into and learn about yourself and about others. It's fascinating.
And I'm just so enamored with your ability because, in back to professional wrestling, there's this ideology of psychology, getting the crowd to be invested in what you're doing physically. And every avenue, every particular field of work that you've had, there is a psychology aspect that goes beyond the work itself that has to deal with people. And it seems like you're gradually mastering them.
You know, that's really good. Thank you for that. I had never thought about that until this very conversation this minute, that all of my law practice was understanding, helping, trying to help people, even though I worked mainly on the defense side, so I represented corporations and insurance companies. I also saw claims that needed to be paid that these corporations didn't want to pay, and so I would get them to pay. So I was helping people, trying to understand people, and that's really so cool. I didn't realize, you know, it's funny when you realize you're on a path that you didn't intentionally set, but then you know, it's like boom, there it is. So thank you for that.
That hurt a little closer to home when you said you didn't intentionally said facts.
I didn't, but you know, when you follow your heart, when you follow what you feel is the right thing for you to do, that's kind of how it works, I guess. You know, you wind up being in the right place at the right time to get into the adult industry, or to teach people to encourage people to run a marathon, or, you know, to go to a spin class or whatever, or learn Enneagram and understand your husband or wife better. It's wow, it's all about people. Damn, I never knew.
I was wondering, have you had the ability to reach out to anybody else that you in the industry or out of the industry had hopes to meet and just say hello, I think you're beautiful, meeting your heroes essentially.
It's to an extent here and there. In the industry, Julia Ann is I'm a big fan of her. She's also a big animal person. So you know, I have a heart. I have currently in this house, I have 10 animals. Not all of them are mine, but I have 10 animals, not including the stuffed gas. But, but so Julia Ann is a big, I've never met her in person, but would love to. Oh, damn it. My mind went blank. I have met, Magdalene St. Michael's, who is a very established girl star. Um, and she's quite a lovely person. We've had dinner. We've gone to the AVN nomination party together several years back. She's quite lovely. Um, Sylvia Sage, I used to in her where she used to live. I would stay with her when I was in Los Angeles. She's and her cats, Bonnie and Clyde. She has these white long hair, so beautiful. So yeah, I've met several people that I really like when I was watching and before I got into the industry. Reagan Fox is another. She actually found me.
Lovely woman. Lovely.
She's amazing, and she reached out and was like, when I what I would do when I first started out. A guy fan suggested this, and kudos to him. But to do like, especially like that first week or the first or second, third trips, like do a little video while I'm getting ready in the mornings. Like I'm nervous. Okay, today's the day I'm going to do a photo shoot with Dean Capture, and I'm nervous because I've never done this before and I don't know how to pose, and But so, and I would just pop that on Twitter, and other established performers saw that. Reagan saw it. Sylvia saw it. Sovereign Sire saw it, and so they reached out. Christy Canyon saw it. I wound up being on Christy's radio show several times over the years. I love that girl. And so then you wind up being friends with these people that you kind of looked at on screen. It was like, she puts her pants on the same way we do, you know? And so it's been really cool to humanize these people that I've only seen on screen up until I met them, and stuff. Dee Williams was one that I'm like, oh my God, she can handle some crazy stuff, but she's hysterical. She's wonderful, and we're friends and stuff. So, um, yeah, I guess Siren was another. Siren Demir is another one that is like just so sexy and beautiful and sensual, and I could never, just I would just freeze, and I did in her presence.
I always end these with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I have a couple of them that I've actually written down. When you said that, I pulled up my phone because I've written them down. And I think I've seen them as memes on social media within the last several months. But one of them is go easy on yourself. Not everything you carry needs to be carried. And then the other one is forgive yourself for not knowing earlier what only time could teach. Those are the two. And you go back to I go back to the knowing yourself better, like you were talking about earlier. The more I get to know myself, the more grace I give me for stupid stuff I've done in the past, or and I'm right here with you right now today because of all the decisions that we have both made up until this point, So no regrets at all. Learning lessons maybe, but no regrets. There's another worker bee going by. Um, but so forgive yourself for not knowing what you shouldn't have already known, Go easy on yourself. It's okay to be human. So I guess that's the main thing.
Made out. That was beautifully stated. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Miss Beth McKenna bringing the art back to pornography. You could find her on Instagram, Beth McKenna 53. You can find her on X, Beth McKenna 53. She's on Fansly, Beth McKenna 53. Loyal fans too. I didn't do the age verification, so you guys are going to have to do your research on the actual name to find that hashtag. But her website is bethmckennaxxx.com. You can find her now. You can follow her. And I'm telling you, if you really like the artistic aspect of pornography, you're going to enjoy this. Mademoiselle, thank you so much for your time and for
Thank you.
gracing us with your presence.
Thank you so much, John. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you today. Had a lovely time.
Thank you so much. And everybody else, you know the rules. Be smart, be mindful, rock on. As always, ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.